It's the Kurt Copeland Show on Z1077. Jesse McCartney, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, brother. How you doing?
I am well. Let's just right off the bat get to this because this is amazing. This is an email that I got today from a girl named Lakeisha. Okay. And my first question before I get into this email, and I'm going to read this to you, I want you to think about when I'm reading this to you, how often does this happen?
Okay.
This is an email. I'm going to try to paraphrase and sum it up as quickly as I can. I heard Jesse's on your show today. Live about 3 hours away from St. Louis, writing for your help. Jesse doesn't know who I am, but I met him a year and a half ago, and a lot of drama started, and my friends ended up making me look like a complete ass. Some girl was on a chat room, spreading rumors and something like that. How often does this happen where fans are just nutty and kind of weird?
I mean, there's a group of diehards that, I mean, look, at the end of the day, the fans are the reason I'm here, and I can't, I'm very, very blessed and fortunate to have everyone that wants to pay attention around, because it's the reason I can make a living and do what I love. Of course, I mean, there's some fans, I swear, that know more about me than I do myself. And I go online and I see some of the things they're talking about. I'm like, how do they know that? That happened when I was 4 and no one else was around. How did they know that stuff? Yeah, I mean, rumors, too. That's another thing that sort of just, it comes with the territory. That stuff's going to happen. You just kind of have to let it go. Forget about it.
You've been dealing with this kind of stuff, the good, the bad, and everything in between.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
For a while now.
I've been doing this. This is my 4th studio album that I'm releasing December 28th. And yeah, I've been doing, I guess I got signed when I was 15, so I've been doing this as a solo artist for about seven years.
Does have it all, is that indicative of having it all? I mean, you've had a lot of success.
It's certainly indicative of being very fortunate and having everything that I have, but it also is sort of a giving, a double entendre in the sense that you can have it all. But there's a song on the album called "Have It All." It's the title track, sure. And yeah, man. I mean, it's my 4th studio album. I feel at this point I've really taken all of the creative reins and really been just steering the direction of the album. Starting with the last album, but really now with this record, it's certainly, I feel like I've finally landed in a place that I'm comfortable with and people are comfortable with. So it's a good place to be. It's a good headspace to be in.
And that leads me directly to my next question. I read that you were really happy about this, and you just alluded to it, kind of having a newfound freedom that maybe you haven't enjoyed before in the creative process. And so with that newfound freedom, what kinds of things, I don't know, maybe it's a lyric? Maybe it's things you would not have otherwise have sung about before. Where are you branching out maybe in new directions?
For this album, I definitely wanted to make sure that there were no limitations lyrically and content-wise. I didn't want to get boxed into any sort of stereotype or have somebody say you can't really talk about that, because it just doesn't make any sense. Like, that's why music is so that you can do what you want to do. And at this point, I'm an adult. I'm 23 years old, and I'm a young adult, and I've kind of seen the world as it is. And it's sort of my perspective, specifically with relationships and with women, the ins and outs, and what that's like. And it makes for great songwriting. And so, yeah, there are a few songs that people I think are going to go, really? That's Jesse? But that's only because it was done on purpose. I didn't want to have anybody telling me what I could and couldn't do. And I think that with the help of some of these producers, they kind of helped me crystallize that goal.
And at the end of the day, you are a real human being that has to experience real human stuff to write songs like that.
Absolutely. And I've been through a lot of the same stuff that everyone else at my age has been through. And that's what makes it fun, I think, for the audience as well. It's that, it's accessible, relatable to those who are listening.
The big Mike is over there in the other studio, and I wanted to give him credit. He's busy working on stuff because he's just awesome. And we were talking about you coming in here today, and I thought to myself, poor guy. I mean, like, he's got to bang his head against the wall every time some idiot at some radio station or wherever is like, Paul McCartney, is that your dad? And I mean, and I thought to myself, the guy ought to come up with his own drinking game. It's the Jesse McCartney drinking game, and here's how it works, okay? Every time you go to a radio station or you're on MTV or whatever, and somebody, it probably doesn't happen with MTV much,
right.
But, you run into some idiot who brings it up like that, and you're like, that's it, and just open a bottle of whiskey and start drinking.
It doesn't really, it doesn't bother me. It's a common misconception. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of people with the last name McCartney in the music industry, so it's a fair assessment.
Right.
I think that, I wish he was related to me in some way. That'd be awesome. But no, there is no relation, and it was funny, actually. I was at Henson Recording Studios in Los Angeles, which is a world famous, been around forever, everyone and their mother is recorded there. And I was there a few years ago recording my second album with John Shanks, and I walked out of Studio A, and right next to me was Studio B, and it said McCartney on the thing, on the door, and I said,
must be a
I
mix-up
thought to
or
myself, I
something,
said, there's some sort of mix-up, and I was like, whatever, and I'm sitting in the green room, this sort of this like, this sort of common area in the lobby, and I'm sitting there, and I hear this voice that I definitely recognize, and I hear him just humming, and I look over, and I see this guy walking with a mandolin. He's playing a mandolin, and he's just got his eyes closed, and he's just humming to himself, and it was Paul McCartney. And I was sitting there on the couch by myself. There was no one else in the studio. It was just the two of us. And he just kind of like went through, and he opened his eye, like one eye, and looked at me, and he just kind of nodded with a smile. And he kept going, and it was like time stopped for a second. It was like a one moment I had with Paul McCartney, and whatever I was doing at the time meant nothing. I had like a pen and paper, and I was writing. I was like, what is that? This is crap compared to whatever he's coming up with. And it was a special moment. But it was, everyone always asks, are you related to him?
Father and son.
The closest I've been is I've been in the studio next to him.
I'm gonna ask you this next question, and while you're answering that, I'm gonna punch up a picture. Speaking of Paul McCartney, there's an early picture of the Beatles from years ago, and with this great leather jacket that you have on today, I think it's leather. Yeah.
It's not leather actually. It's some sort of like a nylon shiny material, but it kind of looks like leather.
It's a great looking jacket, and I'm going to punch up this picture because you look a lot like him in this one particular picture. But first, let's get back to the album. And a lot of collaborations, of course, that go on with music now, and you're working with some great people. Let's talk about, maybe as you look ahead, collaborations, things that, have always been in here. You want to do it, but just haven't gotten around to it yet.
I've known about Bruno Mars for a long time. When I was recording my third album, he was in the studio somewhere. I forget who I was working with, but I saw this guy in the back of the studio, and he was just kind of jamming out on the piano, and he was singing. And I remember walking in going, guys, who is that kid in there? I said, he's unbelievable. Have you guys been listening? And they're like, I don't know, we don't really...
How long ago was this?
Probably 4 years ago.
He was just kind of showing up on the scene?
Just kind of showing up, and barely just got signed, I think, and... they're like, yeah, he got signed, and yeah, he's pretty cool. And I was like, no, you guys don't understand. That guy's amazing. Yeah. And I remember then thinking like that it would be cool to do a song with that guy. And now he's busted all over the radio. And I was talking to my guitar player, and we were kind of kidding that like every note that he has sung or sang at this point has been perfect. Like he's had like the golden notes.
He's like a baseball player that hasn't struck out yet.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all base hits.
Big fan, and I think like listening to the radio these days, I'm happy that my songs are kind of in. Like I'm happy that I'm an artist played on the same station with somebody like that.
You're a contemporary.
It's cool. Yeah, exactly. But as far as future collabs, I mean, he would definitely be one of them. It'd be fun to do a record with him, and I don't know, it'd be fun to do some more urban stuff too. I did, on this album, I worked with Tyga from Young Money, who's this sort of fresh, new, young face of that whole group. And he's like 19, 20 years old, and he and I did a song called I Don't Normally Do This, which is way more on the rhythmic urban side of things that people wouldn't even recognize it was me when they hear it.
Nice to do it, though.
So much fun. And, it's that kind of stuff that I look forward to in the near future,
You do a lot of great work with St. Jude's, and I thought you might like to give them a little mention because I know they're, real near and dear to your heart.
St. Jude's is an amazing hospital, and I've done a lot of work with them. And for me, any sort of, philanthropy that I can do.
That is a tough one to say, isn't it?
It's a tough one, but
philanthropic
work that I can do that involves children. I think kids. I have a younger brother and sister that I don't know what I'd do without. And for me, that's where I always go when I go into these hospitals. Is like that could be my brother or sister, and I'd want somebody to be looking out for them. So it's cool, man. St. Jude's is one of many great places that you can go and visit and just sort of put a smile on their face for even a minute.
I want to remind everybody, December 28th, the brand new album coming out. Did I get the date right?
December 28th.
December 28th.
It's called Have It All.
Have It All. And if you have it all, what's missing? What's missing?
What's missing? At this point right now, man, nothing. I really can honestly say this is probably the happiest I've been. The only thing is figuring out at one point or another if I'm going to settle down or not. But I feel like I still got time to figure it out, and that's sort of what this album is about.
What's the general consensus in here, boys, camera people? 23 years old?
Don't do it, man. Don't do it.
Dylan, you gotta go. Don't do it. He says don't settle down.
I've had 3 or 4 years off, and I'm starting to think like, uh-oh, maybe they don't want me anymore. Maybe there's no one out there that wants it. So I'm trying to figure it out, man. I'm trying to figure it out.